So with Worldcoin, one concern is pre-mined token, but another is,
biometrics.
is a privacy concern. And the idea, my understanding, the idea behind Worldcoin is to like become a member. Basically, you have to have your eyeball scanned by an official orb, Worldcoin orb.
Yeah.
And then an incentive to do that is that you get a airdrop of Worldcoin tokens.
Right.
So you get you get paid to scan your eyeball. I also believe they have like Worldcoin orb like advocates or champions who go around and they get paid even more airdrop Worldcoin to convince other people to scan their eyeball. So they have like an army of orb people around the world, and they've gone to countries like in Africa and Asia and all
Latin
over
America.
the world. And I believe they're in San Francisco now trying to get, scan people's eyeballs. I think they've explained a design where they try to retain privacy, but I don't know. I haven't like scrutinized it, and I don't know. My instincts are that Apple does a lot better job than probably this startup at having a very secure private system. But
Apple has a lot to lose in brand and reputation.
Yeah.
So that concerns me. But I mean, what are they trying to do? I mean, the problem they're trying to solve is that how to prove your identity that you're a human and not an AI. And so by scanning your eyeball, they use that information to tie that to an identity that you can then use within OpenAI and I guess the internet to prove that, this is you, David King, and not a bot.
Why does it matter though?
Yeah.
I think the question of like, is it a human or not, like sounds good on the surface. Like, yeah, I want to know that I'm interacting with the humans. But like, if many of the people that you're interacting with on the internet are humans today, and in the future you end up mixing in a bunch of bots, but you never actually are going to meet these people, shake hands, etc. You're just like people you talk to and share information with or gather. Like, what is so special about it being a single unique individual human versus a bot or a group of 10 humans? Like, I think the opening question is almost like flawed.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think we should discuss
It's attractive
alternatives, but I think there's more to it than just that. I think the other thing they're going to try and do for sure is UBI with this. So in addition to just proving I'm a human for the internet, they're literally going to be like, okay, there's 8 billion humans or whatever, however many they can sign up in their ecosystem. You should use us in OpenAI's ecosystem because we give you a cut of whatever our revenue is or something like that. I think that's why they're doing it.
But even the concept though of like, we're going to mediate the distribution of this is still like a person has to decide, I'm scanning your orb. These are how many orbs we're scanning. This is how much the data is worth. This is how many coins we're going to issue. And they have to kind of keep adjusting that as the system grows. So it's not like a set of rules. Like the thing we love about Bitcoin is just a set of rules just goes, right? These are not a set of rules. These are like people deciding. So in a sense, we're sort of adopting a new politic.
That's what I mean, look at what's trying to happen here. Like I think if you purely analyze this from an economic lens, it's not going to make as much sense. If you analyze this from, is someone trying to, I don't know, become the emperor of some form? Like this would be a way to do it.
Of Worldcoin. It's like,
of the world.
Ambition is the world, right?
So it's a very ambitious project and ambitious around power, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think there's no doubt that is not a world that anyone should want and will be very bad for humans.
Yeah.
So now it could certainly be the case that it just fails. It's just yet another like VC funded startup that goes nowhere and fails. I think that's the likely outcome. However, getting back to your question, David, I don't have a good answer either. I'm curious, and maybe someone listening can like comment to give us ideas about where does it matter about distinguishing between a human, like proof of a human versus AI. If somehow that proves very important, and then people around the world do adopt this because it's the only solution available to get past this, that would be scary. So I think in future shows, or like what we should be thinking about is like, one, where is it actually needed? And then if it is, like, what are alternative solutions that aren't as scary as having like a single person or company in charge of so much stuff?
And I think the question of like, is this a human on the other end of this internet discussion or chat or whatever you want to use it for? I don't think that's broadly that important, but I do think knowing when I'm talking to Steve or when I'm talking to Max that I'm talking to Steve and I'm talking to Max, I think that is important. But I don't need reference that you're a human. I can validate that, verify that myself in the flesh here, and then I could use we could use public private key cryptography to ensure that we're talking to the people.
We already
that we're
do this
talking
with
to.
Signal, right?
Yeah.
So Signal, we can exchange information in person. It shows a specific code that is just between the two of us.
Yeah.
That uses information from each of our phones to create a unique string, and we can look and compare, and then we know all future communication, as long as it's coming from that code, we know it's from each other.
And to abstract this out a layer deeper, because this is something that we've talked about on our show before. I know we've talked about on Nostr News and this is one of the reasons I'm so, and always have been so bullish on Nostr, is Nostr is just, it's a public private key identity system similar to Signal, but you can use it anywhere on the web. And I would say it's less important. I agree. Like, I wouldn't frame it as, is this human or not? But what I would frame it as is authenticity, right? So to your point with these Google videos, and like, by the way, I mean, I'm increasingly to the point where it's like, it's time to kind of like retreat from the web probably for a year or so, because shit's going to get too crazy, right? And so
just a year, like, you think it's going to be fixed a year from now?
Well, I mean, hopefully if the Nostr community has something to do with it, I certainly hope so. But, you know, forget human or not. If I see a video and I, you know, see this is DK talking, or I see this is Jack Dorsey talking, or whatever. Now that the models have gotten so good that you can literally just make up literally anything, like the golden age of deepfakes was already upon us, and man, it just went on steroids, and it's going to get way worse in 6 months and then way worse in 12 months. And so forget human or not, like what Worldcoin purports to be solving is a really real problem, which is, I don't know what to believe on the internet anymore. There is no trust without an identity system. There's two approaches you can take to solve this problem. Approach number one is have a centralized entity control the identity. That's what we've done in the past with either governments or corporations. That's what we have with OAuth and servers from Google and Facebook and Twitter and whatever. That's one path. And they're trying to do it from a private company. Now, obviously, the problem is whenever one administrator, one company, one government, whatever, administers that whole identity, I'm sure they'll have a consortium and this and that. But like, you know, if one entity is controlling it, there always remains tremendous opportunity for abuse. That's the whole point of things like Bitcoin, right? Is anything that's done in secret where there's a centralized ruler you have to trust, there's a potential for abuse. The alternative is to have it grounds up. And this is what I love so much about Nostr. And the reason I'm so bullish on it is this concept, one, that any note you sign or any note you post, you have to sign. As long as I know Steve's key, his pub key, and I see it signed with his private key, assuming Steve didn't lose that key, and we'll eventually figure out solutions to that with rekeying and stuff like that, then that's the only thing I'm going to believe on the internet other than seeing him IRL. Similarly, there's this adjacent concept of the web of trust, which has gotten me so excited about Nostr. And this comes from the early cypherpunk days with PGP keys. PGP keys was trying to do the exact same thing as Nostr in a sense, but it was too complex. And so I think, you know, maybe at max 50,000 people or something have ever used it over 20 plus years. Nostr, we know, you know, we have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that have at least gotten a Nostr key for the first time in their life. And so we're already very sort of ahead of that curve. But the point is, you can have these emergent and contextual webs of trust where you say, hey, when it comes to, you know, knowing what's going on with Google releases, well, if I see that DK and Steve in particular liked or zapped a post or follow someone, I'm going to weight that much more heavily because I know these guys were at Google and knew something about that. If I see, I don't know, like, Austin was telling me about Italian food or something. And like, I'm like, okay, Austin probably has good taste in Italian food. And I see he rated a restaurant. I'm going to give that additional weight. But the point is, your identity is not one thing and fixed. It's controlled. It's contextual. It's bottoms up and decentralized. And that's the vision of the world I want to see.
So, and anything else on where, I mean, I think future shows we'll talk a little bit more about identity and AI and Worldcoin, but anything else we know about now that are concerned or
I mean,
thoughts?
I worry about, you know, this, I think it's a sort of a famous quote. Was it one of the Berkshire guys, I don't know, Munger or whatever, where he said, in the short term, the stock market is a voting machine. In the long term, it's a weighing machine. Which do you know that quote? Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Which I think I always take that to mean kind of like in the short term, it's really about, in a sense, what do people believe? And in the long term, it's what is true. And the thing that I feel like all of tech to some extent, yeah, when I got excited about tech initially, it was like, because you can build things, you make things and bring something from your head into reality. And that was what's exciting about it. But we've gotten so far down like the financialization of everything, big long-term dreams that need a lot of support to be able to have, to be able to be built, that like a lot of tech has become more like a social consensus building machine instead of a weighing machine, right? It's more of like a voting machine. And I feel like Worldcoin is like kind of a very strong example of like people say, oh, like, wouldn't it be great if we knew what was a human versus what was a machine? Yeah, on the surface, that sounds good. So it's easy to sort of trick people into buying into a system because it has a really simple, on the surface, attractive message. But if you start to peel back a few layers, you start to see all of the problems with it. Like, well, I'm contributing my biometrics to some dystopian overlord who gets to control the flow of funds and stuff. So I think like there's a broad story here of like, how to think better about these simple messages you get. And even on the the Johnny Ive thing, I think a little bit it's like on the surface that sounds like, oh, got great collaborator, inventor of the iPhone or whatever you call it. But like the thing that makes the Apple system work has so little to do with that today. It's like the supply chain and the manufacturing and distribution and the capital and
the trust and brand.
The trust and brand. And actually, to bring it back to the Google Glass stuff, it's like having connectivity to your phone was a huge problem for Google Glass. And so I don't think it's just bring a few people together and make the magic. I think there's like, think about the system behind it and who's building that system. And are you going to be able to compete at that system? So sorry, I'm a little bit off on a few different topics here, but I think on the Worldcoin stuff, I'm concerned that it's a lot of very simple, attractive messages where when you get like one layer beyond it, you're like, whoa, this is just, this is a pitfall of dystopia that we're going into. And so I would like to see a world where we don't adopt those. I would never touch one of those machines. And I think like it's mostly just a lie being told.
This is coming from the person who has their like a code on their palm scanned.
Yeah.
Didn't he share that with us a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, and I was thinking about that because it's like
it's also pretty scary.
I think that's a scary future, but I also think that it doesn't purport to be anything else. It's like I do intend to use this card with this service provider, and they're simplifying my payment experience. So like, yes, it can get dystopian.
Did you need to buy a new cryptocurrency token in order to use this service?
I didn't.
Yeah. So that's
I walked out of there with the food that I intended to eat, which I then ate. Like it worked, like there was an exchange of value. Whereas this thing is kind of like, hey, get some of my cryptocurrency token that I just made up and I'm going to issue more. It's like, okay, we've got, the federal U.S. Treasuries and the Federal Reserve all over.
I think the other concern about this is like, if someone were just doing this out of the blue, even if it were a successful entrepreneur, I would kind of agree with your take. It's just going to fail. Like but like, this is a little different because if OpenAI wins the AI race, which is, they're one of like 4 contenders, 5 contenders max. This is going to be a very valuable service. And like, a lot of people are already using OpenAI. How many they have? Several 100 million. So it's not like they're starting from zero, and they've got many of the most powerful backers in the world. And I would just say it would be a little bit concerning if they win the race and the only way to use it becomes Worldcoin. Like, okay, that's not a great outcome. Well, I don't think that's the most likely.
I think it's nice that we've got DeepSeek and open source, got Llama and all kinds of alternatives that are going to not be controlled or that are going to create a check on any kind of controlled central system.